Most people walk around thinking they're making their own choices, like they're in full control. The truth is, you're not. You're not as conscious as you think you are. You're basically running on autopilot like 90% of the time, and you don't even know it. That's not just me saying that. There's actual studies on this. There was this one experiment, I think it was Benjamin LeBay back in the 1980s. And what they found was a little odd. Basically, they had people sit there with electrodes on their heads, and they gave them this simple task. You just sit there and wait until you feel like pressing the button, then press it. Simple enough. But what they discovered is that your brain has already made the decision before you consciously thought, okay, I'm going to hit the button now. Some moments before you were even aware of your choice, your brain had already chosen and lit up, signifying that you've made a decision. So what you call you wasn't really choosing. Well, not consciously, anyways. And that's wild because it means that your subconscious is driving the car and your conscious mind is just the passenger sitting there pretending to be the driver. This explains why we get into these situations where we say, I don't know why I did that, or I just had a gut feeling, or why do I always make the same mistake? Because, yeah, you're not really the one deciding in the moment. You're just reacting to all this programming that's running in the background. It's sort of like ChatGPT. Have you ever noticed that before where you ask ChatGPT a question and it just spits something out instantly? And a lot of times it sounds smart, like it knows what it's talking about. But sometimes when you really pay attention, you notice it's just making stuff up. It doesn't know why it said that. It's just giving you a pattern of words that matched what seemed right based on what it was trained on. And that's what most of us are doing. We're just pattern matching. We're piecing together a personality based on things that we've seen, the things that we've heard, our expectations, our survival instincts. Like, what should I say here? Or what kind of person do I need to present myself as when I walk into this important situation? I know that all sounds kind of weird, like I'm saying you don't know yourself, but I'm not trying to say it in an insulting kind of way. I'm saying it because once you see it, once you see how much of your day is just automated programming, that's when you can finally start to wake up. So Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what this is. You're living out a script that wasn't written, that was written without your permission. And you're just thinking that it's fate. You're just thinking that this is how life is just how it is. But really, it's your unconscious playing the same loops on repeat. And if you actually take control of your life, you have to start by realizing you don't know yourself yet, but you can. So from the time that you're born, the world starts writing your code. I'm talking about your parents, your school, your religion, your culture, your friends, even the TV shows you watched growing up. Every single one of those things puts little ideas into your head about what life should look like, what kind of person you're supposed to be. And it's not like it all happens at once. It's the little things. It's being told to sit still in class. It's being punished for speaking your mind, for being praised for when you fit in. It's all these little micro moments that start to stack up and build this blueprint into your brain. And eventually you start to become that blueprint. And that blueprint becomes your life without you even realizing it. You just think, okay, I'm supposed to go to college. I'm supposed to get a good job, I'm supposed to get married, have some kids, make money, retire, and die. And that's it. That's the formula. And if you follow that formula, you're supposed to be happy. But what if that formula wasn't made for you? What if the entire system is just something that you inherited? What if the life that you live, the life that you think you're supposed to live, the goals, the rules, the way you're supposed to be, was never actually yours? Joseph Campbell, the guy that talked about human myths and human stories, he wrote that book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He talked about this. He says that most people are not living their own life. Most people are living other people's stories. He said that you have to refuse the call sometimes. That heroic journey doesn't start until you step away from what's expected and start carving out your own path. But that's hard because you spent your whole life getting good at playing this character, this identity that everyone knows. And once you've got far enough into it, it's hard to question it now because you've got momentum now. People see you in a certain way. They're proud of you. They expect things from you. And you think, if I walk away from this, who even am I? Like, let's say you always wanted to be a lawyer. Maybe that's what your family told you you'd be great at or something. You got the good grades, you went to college, you took tests, did everything right. But then one day you're just sitting there about to graduate, or maybe you're already working at a law firm, and this little voice inside of your head starts saying, I don't think I actually want this. And that's really scary because now you have to face all that truth, that all this time you were just walking someone else's path, or at least a path that was sort of automatically carved out for you without your knowledge. And if you admit that out loud, you feel like you're going to disappoint everyone. This isn't what I wanted. But now if I change, everyone's going to think that I'm letting them down. So what do people do? They either keep going and stay stuck in a life that doesn't feel right to them, or they have to blow up the whole thing. They have to go through this descent where they strip away everything that wasn't really them and start from scratch. And that descent is hard, but it's also the beginning of becoming a real person. So yeah, we're programmed, but I guess the good news is you can once you realize it, you can start to rewrite it. You can figure out which parts of you are actually you and which parts of you were downloaded from someone else's expectations. It starts with questioning the blueprint. This is something that almost everyone is going through in some way, shape, or form. Like, everyone is going through this. And for some reason, we just don't talk about it, especially people in their 20s and 30s. There's actually research on this, and I've mentioned this in other videos before, but something like 60% of people in that 20 to 30 age range say that they're going through some kind of identity crisis. And that's not just a weird phase or just a small number not to take a look at. I think the reason that this hits so hard during this stage is because that's when all the old programming starts to fall apart. You graduate college, you get the job that you wanted, you move into the apartment, you check off all the boxes, and then you're sitting there like, wait, is this really it? Like, seriously. I did everything you did everything you were supposed to do, and you realize that none of it actually feels right. Like you were just promised this big payoff, this huge sense of fulfillment, and now you're just kind of hollow. You're confused, and like you feel like you're playing a character in someone else's story. And if you try to ignore it at first, you might just tell yourself, well, maybe I just need a vacation. That's what I need. I just need to get out of here for a little bit and then I'll be good. Maybe I need to get promoted, or maybe once I meet the right person, I'll feel better about my life. But it just doesn't go away, does it? It's because it's not a surface level problem. It's a foundational problem. You're not questioning the details of your life. You're questioning the whole blueprint that was laid out for you. And that's why this thing runs so deep. It's not just a kind of random confusion. It's like existential. It's like, if I'm not this person that I've been trying to be for the last 10 years, then who am I? There's this philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard. He said that the biggest form of despair is to be unaware that you're in despair. And that really hit me the first time that I read it, because that's happening with so many people. They're just going through the motions. They're just checking off the boxes. But deep down, they're in despair and they don't even know it. Or even worse, they do know it, but they're afraid to say it out loud. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be the one that says, hey, I think we're all pretending here. Like, something's wrong. Because that makes people uncomfortable. It makes people look at their own lives, look at themselves in the mirror. But that's where the real work starts. When you realize that I don't want to just live someone else's idea of success. I want to live my life, whatever that is. And yeah, it's hard. It takes courage. It means possibly disappointing people. Maybe walking away from things that you've invested years into. But if you don't do it, if you don't answer that little voice that's inside that says, this isn't me, then what are you doing? You're just existing. You're not living. So yeah, identity crisis, cliche though it may be, is the beginning of waking up. And there's really only two paths that you can take on this. Path number one is you ignore it. You stay on the same path you've been on. You push that little voice down. You keep doing what's expected. You play the rule or the role, and you eventually go numb. You stop asking questions. You settle. You tell yourself, well, I guess it's just what life is. You can't have it all, can you? It is what it is. But that's a lie, and deep down, you know it too. And the longer that you stay in that lie, the heavier it gets. It's like carrying around this invisible weight that no one else can see, but you feel it and see it everywhere. You see it in your work, you see it in your relationships, you see it in your health. It eats away at you slowly. And that's the path a lot of people take. It's not because they're weak, it's not because they're stupid or something, but it's because it's the path of least resistance. It's easier to pretend than to burn it all down and start over. But then there's the other path, path two. You listen to the voice, you stop pretending, and you admit to yourself, maybe for the first time, this is not who I really am. And you go through what I'll call the descent. I'm not going to lie to you that descent is rough. It's letting go of the identity that's been holding you up your whole life and realizing, damn, I don't know who I am without this. But that's where the truth is. That's where you start to uncover the parts of yourself that were buried under the programming. You start to find out what actually matters to you. Not your parents, not your boss, not your friend group, not anyone. This is the path of individuation. It's the path of becoming a whole person. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he said, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And that's what I think most people are doing. They're distracting themselves. They're numbing themselves with more work, with more scrolling, with more alcohol or whatever, just to avoid that internal voice that's saying, hey, you're off track. But if you answer it, you actually face it, that's when things start to change. So there's the two paths. One leads you deeper into yourself. The other one leads you further away, and nobody can choose it for you. But if a better life is possible, and if a more true version of you is actually out there, why not at least give it a try? We all have within us a calling, a set of skills that only you have because of your unique life experience. The stuff that you care about most, like your deepest obsessions, those don't just happen randomly. They don't just show up randomly. They came from somewhere. They came from experience. They came from something that had an impact. And a lot of times they come from a void. Like there was something missing or something painful or something beautiful that hit you really hard, and your brain or your whole system just went like, that's what matters. And from then on, it became a part of you. So let me give you an example. Let's say that there's a little boy, and every summer he goes to his grandma's farm. And one day he's helping her collect eggs from the chicken coop. And she looks at him and she goes, you have such a caring way with animals. Now, it might not seem like a big deal to most people. It's just a comment. It's just a little moment. But to him, for some reason, it hits. Because maybe he's never heard that kind of comment before. Maybe he's always felt a little bit different or a little sensitive or something. But this was the first time that someone ever sees that and validates it. And for that reason, it lands. That one moment, that one sentence, it becomes a seed. And from that point on, he sees animals differently, say. He sees himself differently. He starts to identify with gentleness, with care, with protecting things that can't protect themselves. And then that same energy starts to show up in other areas of his life, his relationships and how he works. Maybe even the kind of job that he chooses, that value of being tender, of being thoughtful, of being caring becomes a part of his internal code. And it's not just because it's a good trait. It's because it's filled a void inside of him somewhere. Because maybe he's also seen the opposite. Maybe he grew up around a lot of harshness or a lot of cruelty or careless people. And so now being gentle matters to him. It's not just on principle. It's emotional at its core. That's how values get locked in, and that's how you see the world. And this happens because of something that's called emotional salience. So your brain literally tags certain moments as meaningful like a screenshot, and those moments become reference points for how you see the world. You maybe have hundreds or even thousands of these little puzzle pieces from your past that shaped your identity. Most of them are just sitting below the surface of your awareness, too. And you think it's just your personality, but really it's an unexamined memory. And for every value that you have, there's usually a shadow side to it. Like if you value freedom, it's probably because you felt trapped before. If you value honesty, maybe it's because you've been lied to. Maybe if you value kindness, maybe you've seen cruelty. The value comes from the void. And until you understand that, until you start looking at where your values come from, you just end up walking around with a story that you didn't write. But once you start looking, like really looking, that's when things start to click. That's when you realize like, oh, this isn't just random. I'm not just randomly triggered by this thing. This is something that's a part of my story. And that's the whole point. You can't know who you are until you know why you care about what you care about. So once you realize that what you value comes from experiences that were impactful, from filling voids, then you start to see something deeper. Those values don't just sit there. They start to shape the way that you move through the world. Like not just what you believe, but what you expect to happen, what you notice, what feels normal and what feels off. The way that psychology talks about this is an idea called schemas. So a schema is basically like a mental framework. It's like a little invisible rule book in your head that tells you how something is supposed to go. It's automatic and it just runs in the background. So let's say that you walk into a Starbucks. You've already got a schema for that in place. You expect people with laptops or maybe a certain smell, a certain kind of tone in the music. It's quiet, it's modern, it's kind of progressive. That whole vibe, that's what you expect. But if you walked into a Starbucks and it was like blasting country music with people dancing and clapping and a guy on a saddle, you would be like, this is not Texas Roadhouse. This is Starbucks. What is happening right now? And the reason is it's because it doesn't match your internal schema. So whenever you walk into a Texas Roadhouse, that's what you expect. You expect people to be loud and laughing and peanut shells on the floor. Well, at least used to. I don't think they do that anymore. But you expect people to be riding on the saddles and yeehawing and all that sort of stuff. That's the vibe that you expect. That's the schema that you expect. But if you would go to a Ruth's Chris steakhouse, like a really nice steakhouse, you're going to expect something different. The dim lights, the clean white tablecloths, the staff that comes over and uses that little crumb scraper on your table. It's quiet. It's classy. That's a different schema. And you don't even think about this stuff. You're not analyzing it. It just runs automatically like a program. If something doesn't match that program, you feel it. You might not even know why. Something in you goes, this doesn't fit. Okay, so now take that idea and let's zoom out. That's what's happening everywhere in your life. You've got schemas for everything, for conversations, for how relationships should go, for your job, for how people are supposed to treat you, for what success looks like, for how you're supposed to act in the grocery store or the church or on a date or at a family dinner. And most of these schemas weren't chosen. They were just given to you. They were absorbed, imprinted early on. You think that you're reacting to the world, but you're really reacting to your expectations of how the world is supposed to be. And that's where it gets kind of deep, because once those expectations match up with reality, whenever the world lines up with the schemas that you have, say, your brain automatically kind of goes into a hypnotic state. It relaxes, stops questioning. It just runs the script. And this is something that I learned a few years ago whenever I was studying hypnotherapy. Now, hypnosis, most people think that hypnosis is some sort of stage magic, like barking like a dog or clucking like a chicken. That's entertainment. It's a totally different thing. Real hypnosis, the kind that I'm talking about at least, is whenever you enter a state of trance by being in an environment that matches your expectations and allows you to be comfortable enough to fall into something called suggestibility. The word hypnos comes from the Greek, or the word hypnosis comes from the Greek word hypnos, which means sleep. And you enter this trance state all the time. Whenever you're driving to the store, you don't remember that drive, do you? It's just sort of a trance. That's hypnosis. Whenever you're working on something that you care about and hours goes by and you don't even notice, that's hypnosis. Whenever you walk into a familiar place and your body just knows how to act, that's a trance, that's hypnosis. We could say that the brain is wired to save energy by automating routine. So when something feels expected, you don't fully wake up. It just kind of flows. You just run the program. Sometimes that's helpful. It's how we survive. It saves calories, like from our ancestors. But if you never stop to look at the code, to question your schemas, you might be living your entire life in this hypnotic trance and not even know it. And that's what people mean whenever they say that we're living in the matrix. That's what it is. It's a psychological matrix. It's a mesh of programming, assumptions, expectations, scripts, and you don't even notice it because you're asleep. It's because everything is just how it should be until it's not. And I hope this is all making sense to you so far, because sometimes I have a tendency to get a little too abstract. So I hope that what I'm saying is actually connecting and making good sense to you. And on that note, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, all that, because the more engagement that I can get, the more motivated I'll be to make more videos. But anyways, let's say that you start to realize that you're living in this programmed state, right? Like you've got these schemas running in the background, you're going through the motions, you're on autopilot. You think that you're seeing reality clearly, but you're not. You're only seeing the parts that line up with your programming, the stuff that your brain expects to see. And everything else, it just disappears. Like it doesn't exist in your world. There's actually a name for this. It's called change blindness. And there's this famous experiment. Maybe you've seen it before. It's where they show this video of people passing a basketball around, and you're supposed to count how many times the basketball gets passed. If you're so you're watching the video, you're like locked in, trying to count how many passes there are, and then you might be like, okay, there were 16 passes. And then afterward, they ask, well, did you see the gorilla? And about half of the people that watch this are like, what gorilla? So they'll rewind the tape, and there it is. It's like a full-grown dude in a gorilla suit that walks right across the screen, beats his chest, and then walks off right in front of your face. And something like 50% of people that do this experiment miss it because your attention was locked onto what you were told to look for. That's what most people are doing. They're looking for what they expect to find because of their programming. They're so focused on counting the passes of life, their job, their marriage, success, stability, that they completely miss the proverbial gorilla in the room, we'll say, because it doesn't fit the schema, the expected result based on what you're programmed to see. Let's say that a family goes to a mall and the husband is an architect. His mind is wired to see the structure, the design, the lighting and space and all this sort of stuff. So they walk in and he looks up and he goes, wow, these skylights, they're perfectly placed. It's amazing. Look how the sun tracks across the ceiling throughout the day. They planned this perfectly. And his wife, she's like, what are you even talking about? I didn't even notice that. She didn't see it. It wasn't a part of her world. But then she sees a kid's outfit in the store somewhere, and she says, oh my God, wouldn't our son look so cute in that outfit? And he's like, what outfit? They're in the same space, but they're not seeing the same world. Because what you see is what you've been programmed to value. What you notice, what your attention filters in, is shaped by the emotional blueprint that you've been carrying around your whole life. That's the real matrix. That's what they talk about. Until you stop and question that, until you pause and ask yourself, what am I not seeing? Then you're just going to be chasing whatever's already in your line of sight. I think it was Alan Watts. He said it like this. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. And that's so true because it means that your perception is not objective. It's not neutral. It's filtered through your past, your wounds, your programming, your values, your voids. So ask yourself, what truth have you missed because it didn't match with what you thought you were supposed to be paying attention to? Until you learn to see that pattern, to see beyond your pre-programmed filters, you're not really seeing it all. A lot of us, like way more than we want to admit for some reason, are not living our own lives. We're living someone else's expectation, someone else's vision, someone else's idea of who we're supposed to be. It shows up in these small ways at first. Like you say, yeah, I guess I should go to college, I suppose. Or maybe I should settle down, or I need to get in shape, or I need to be more responsible. It's like, hold on. Why do you need to do anything? Where's that coming from? Because a lot of time that need isn't actually yours. It's someone else's voice that's living in your head. It's your parents, it's your culture. It's that internalized voice that says you have to become this person or you're a disappointment. So you start shaping yourself around that. You suppress the parts of yourself that don't fit the image. You pick the right jobs, the right relationships, right goals, not because they feel right, because they feel safe, because they make other people happy, and it helps you avoid the guilt, I guess. But here's the problem. You can't betray your soul forever. You can suppress it. You can ignore it for a while, but eventually it will start screaming at you. And we've all seen it in different ways so many times. People get married because they felt like they were supposed to, and they didn't even want to. Like they were afraid of letting their family down. They were afraid of being the one who didn't follow the formula. So they went through this whole process of 10 years, and 10 years later, they're divorced and hollow and wondering what happened. Or maybe people pick a career because it sounded impressive, because it made my dad proud, because it looked good on the resume. But now they're waking up every day with this ache in their chest thinking, this isn't what I was born to do. And this isn't even me. And they're almost embarrassed to admit it because it sounds lame. And so the truth is that they knew, though. They knew from the beginning, but they were just too scared to disappoint people. No one wants to be the black sheep, the disappointment, the what happened to him guy. But what's the alternative? Live your entire life for other people, then die with regret? That's the real tragedy. Because here's what people don't understand. The people that you're so afraid of letting down, the ones that you're bending over backwards to please, they're just trying to manage their fears too. They don't know what's best for you. They're just projecting their own story onto you. And if you sacrifice your entire life just to make them comfortable, you both lose. You lose you lose your life, and they never actually get to see you. It's scary to say, I don't want this, but it's scarier to look back at your own life and realize that you never actually lived it. So how do you get out of this? Like, for real. You realize that you're living someone else's life. You feel that ache in your gut that says, this isn't me. You've seen programming. We've talked about hypnosis, the expectations that people put on you, big values. So now what? Well, this is the part where the work begins and where it's not easy. It's not quick, but at least it's real. If you want to stop being an NPC, you want to become a real person, like an actual grounded, sovereign individual, then the first step is simple. You got to get to know yourself. And if you want to get to know yourself now, you have to figure out where you came from. You have to figure out why you care about what you care about, what your values are, what the voids are underneath of those, what beliefs that you've been carrying around that aren't even yours. Like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's what this is. It's pulling the real you out of the shadows and integrating it into your life. That means sitting with your own story. It means looking at the moments that shaped you, the patterns, the emotional beats, the stuff that hit and you that never left. And whenever you do that, when you really start digging into this sort of stuff, it's like the fog starts to clear. You realize, oh, that's why I'm so drawn to that thing. That's why this situation triggers me so much. That's why I've been chasing this kind of validation my whole life. It all starts to make sense. That's what it means to be aware, to be awake, to actually be present in your own life. Because right now, and this is true for most of us, you're not really choosing. You're just reacting. You're playing out scripts. You're following the paths that were handed to you. But the second that you start to question those paths, to see the blueprint for what it is, you get access to something that most people never see in their life. Agency, like actual conscious, I chose this kind of agency. That's the beginning of the real journey. That's the start of the work. Not the surface level stuff like fixing your habits or tweaking your goals, which is important. But I'm talking about re-architecting your whole identity from the inside out. And it's hard, but it's the only way to build a life that actually belongs to you. So if you've been listening to everything that I've been saying and it's clicking with you and you're like, okay, I get that I've been shaped by the people and things that I didn't choose. I'm not sure who I am exactly. Then here's where you start. You need to go back through your story. You need to pull it apart, not in some big like dramatic way, but in a curious way, in an honest way. You need to look at the moments that shaped you, those impactful ones, like the example we gave earlier, the stuff that hits you emotionally, the stuff that you remember even when you don't know why. And so to help with that, I put something together that I call the self-concept autobiography. It's down in the description of the video. So all you have to do is click the link and there's a document with all the directions, and just totally transparent. It's 100% free. This isn't some sort of sales pitch or a funnel where you have to put your email or anything like that. I just made it because I wish that I had it a few years ago. So it's all yours. So what this does is it helps you write the story of you, not just that surface level story like I was born here and I went to school here. I'm talking about the real psychological, emotional blueprint of who you became and why you became who you are. Because in psychology, your self-concept is basically the internal map you have of yourself. It's your identity. It's your belief system. It's how you see yourself, the kind of person that you think you are, and the kind of world that's around you. That self-concept was shaped mostly unconsciously, like we've talked about. Those impactful experiences that were emotionally important to you got coded into your brain. And over time, they turned into patterns, which turned into expectations, and eventually the schemas that we talked about earlier as well. So what the self-concept autobiography helps you do is to dig into those moments. Like, okay, what actually made me who I am? What people most impacted me? What were the moments that shifted how I saw myself? When something hit so hard that it stuck for years, stuff like that. It walks you through that step by step. And once you start seeing those puzzle pieces, you start to notice the bigger shape, the bigger picture. You start to see the pattern. You start to realize, oh, this thing that's been a pattern in my life, that came from that experience, that thing that I'm chasing all the time. It's connected to something I was missing back then. And that kind of insight is what helps you truly understand yourself at your core. Because now, instead of running the same script blindly, you can understand your tendencies and even begin to rewrite them. You can reframe them. You can reframe your past in a way that empowers you instead of traps you. And it's not just like trauma work or therapy. It's about finding clarity. It's about actually knowing who you are beneath all that noise. So if you're listening to this and you've been looking for some kind of answers, I really want to encourage you. Use that self-concept autobiography down in the description. Take your time on it. Do it messy. Give yourself the gift of time, because it's the first step in remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. I think that's all for today. So look, everything that I've said here might sound intense or deep or even stupid to you or abstract or whatever. Here's what I want you to understand. It's your actual life. This is happening right now in real time. Every day that goes by where you're not aware of your programming, where you're not conscious of your choices, you're just repeating patterns. You're playing out a version of life that wasn't designed by you. You don't even know it because it feels normal. It's right in front of your face. It's the way that you drive to work and don't remember the road. It's the way that you stay in relationships that you don't even want. It's the way that you say, I need to instead of I want to. It's the way that you look around and think to yourself, is this really it? That feeling, that question, that's the crack in the matrix. That's the beginning. That's your soul tapping on the glass and saying, hey, I'm still in here. Let me out. And yeah, it might be scary to face the truth that maybe you don't know who you are, but it's also liberating because you're not stuck. You're not broken. You're just unconscious like most people are. But now you see it. Now you know. And once you know, once you've woken up to this idea, you can't go back to sleep. So again, here's my final ask. Don't just make this another video that you watch. Don't scroll to the next thing and watch something stupid and forget this. You got to start. You got to start questioning, start writing, start noticing the patterns and waking up from the hypnosis. Because once you do, you realize you've been carrying the real you the whole time, the whole you. It's just been blurred. It's just been buried underneath who you thought you had to be. And now it's time to remember. Okay, that's all for today. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, again, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that sort of stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.